Hey everybody. I just wanted to get on here tonight. It's Saturday and it's after New Year's, so it is officially 2026. And I really appreciated walking into the new year with just so much focus on taking it slow, easy, not doing a whole lot, being able to reflect on this past year, which holy shiz, like I'm learning about like the vagus nerve and how it affects you, like the dorsal, when it's like in the dorsal, like I can't remember, there's two different kinds, dorsal and then the two different ways it can be. And I know when I was going through the extreme grief and loss, I was going through both of those things at the same time. And it was like my energy was able to be in both simultaneously. And I didn't even know that was a thing, but it is. And I was thinking about it, I'm like, God almighty, why is that not taught in school? Like, why are you not taught that your vagus nerve gets affected when you go through grief and loss? Like, and then we're learning Pythagorean and theorem, I think. But like, which was cool or whatnot, but there's a lot of memes about this, like, yeah, because I'm using that every day in my life, and we're not. But what information we could use every day is something like that. And then that led me to looking up, what does that look like for that to be taught in school? And I came across the community resilience model, which I think is relative to like all the social determinants of health, any type of reentry stuff, like any community that's working on trauma-informed care. It's the system that goes with it. And it's so cool because like I feel with this new level of awareness, people won't be looking at themselves like I did, like, what's wrong with me? And it was more like, no, this is how I'm responding due to how my vagus nerve is getting affected, right? And so that was super powerful for me to come across that information and then to take it further and wanting to know, is this something that can be taught in school? This very basic information can yield such amazing community support where people are not understanding why, they're being affected the way they are. And it's because of this, right? So with a little bit of that knowledge, kind of like with everything I've done with substance use disorder and trying to, create trainings and different ways to share the messaging around that so people feel safe to talk about it. Because ultimately, if people feel safe to talk about it, then more people will feel safe to ask for help. And then it will be normalized to be able to talk about it versus not feeling like you can talk about it or it's taboo or, it's a moral failing, like all these different things and all these outdated ideas that people have about it. So a lot of my life's work is around that. Like, how do we create space to talk about this so it becomes normal to talk about, because it affects everybody. Now, the other cool thing I'm seeing is everybody's talking about it. I'm seeing it all the time. And that's amazing. Like, heck yeah. So what's going to start happening is public perception which is what all of us professionals talk about. By changing the language, by making it normal to talk about, guess what? Public perception starts to shift. And when public perception starts to shift and awareness comes into focus, then our young generations, like they are not really wanting to drink. And it's the main reason why is because they have an awareness and have seen older generations and how it's affected them. So it's really wild. We're in a really wild time right now to see this. And not only that, like, you know, and this, I will say this too, like I ain't knocking drinking. I did it for a long ass time, right? It runs in my family. My family likes to drink, you know, and that's all right. Like, I will never say it's not okay to drink. What I'm here to say is you can learn more about it and it will help you to make the best informed decisions for you and yourself. Because ultimately it comes back to that. You get to make all the decisions around this. Now, I've decided for almost 17 and a half years not to do it. But that was my decision. Like, that was something I decided early on. And very early on, I told people, you get to continue to do what you do, and I get to continue to do what I do. I'm choosing not to do this because I don't want to. And that's the coolest thing ever, because to have the feeling like, I just don't want to. I have no desire to do it. And I talk to God about it every day, and God was like, cool, cool, cool. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to help you to continue to be inspired. And, you know, and I've tripped a lot of acid, and I've tripped a lot of shrooms. And for me, what started happening is I just started having these really trippy experiences sober. And I was like, oh my God, this is even better. You know, this is even better than getting high. And what I mean by that is like, just different things started happening, like the cool conversations I started to have with people around me. When I talked about my struggles with addiction, and then I was talking to my peers about it, and it was just like these cool conversations, these cool connections. And then I took this thing called a recovery message training, and then I was very fortunate to start offering those trainings to people around the community. And what we found is it was changing people's lives to go through that 2-hour training. And so what was also really cool, and I shared this in my last video a little bit, is all this information and everything that I've learned as a professional and through the message training and through being in recovery almost 2 decades, so growing up in sobriety, I've learned a lot. And I've learned a lot, and I've seen a lot of people see this and view this a little bit differently when they've had more awareness of what it actually is, like what substance use actually is, how it affects the brain, you know. And so it's really interesting, you know. I've been so appreciative of the opportunity to do work around it. And then once again, having focus groups and having these conversations with people and seeing how this information is positively impacting our community. And it's super cool. And it's hard conversations. I'm not going to sit here and say it's the easiest conversation to have, because it's not. And that's why it's been so taboo to talk about for so long. But at the same time, what I believe will continue to happen, what I've seen happen, is it gradually makes things better because you're having the conversations, because you're allowing the awareness and into focus of the different ways these things are affecting you and affecting the people you love. And so, and at first, yeah, it's uncomfortable and it sucks, but at the same time, wow. It's yielding some really, really cool results. And it's allowing people to feel safe to talk about what's going on. And so I get to continue to work on that. And I get to continue to work with amazing colleagues that are working on that. And that is such a blessing in my life, and it will continue to be. Anybody that knows me will tell you that. Like, this is a thing for me. And it was really interesting. Like, I feel that I felt that a long time ago. Where it's like, if this can be cool, right? If the idea of recovery, whether that's harm reduction, whether that's abstinence-based, whatever that looks like for you, if you are allowed to have that path and you can share that path openly, then what we will continue to see is people will come together to have conversations around it. I have visions of it. I had started having visions of it. I remember I was talking to one of my colleagues outside his business in Charlotte. This was in 2015, and I was standing outside my car talking to him, and I was like, I see visions of it. I see visions of the days when people are in town hall meetings together and in community spaces, and they're having these conversations, and it's open conversation, and it's people sharing. Like, I've had this going on and nobody's known about it. I've had this going on and my family's been struggling with this, and I've been wanting a safe space to be able to talk about it. I have visions of it. And it's really cool because, like, I believe that creating a curriculum for it is awesome as well. Like, it's something that I started working on, and something I want to continue to do is to offer a free curriculum to people to have these conversations, whether you're starting your own groups, whether you're doing book work on your own. I want to provide that. I've started to write it, and I know it. I know it because I've lived it, and so it's like, and that's the other amazing thing about it. Like, I've lived this, and so I can write it, I can rewrite it, I can write it with different language and make it more inviting and supportive, because it means the world to me to be able to create that bridge where we see huge system gaps. And so I'm super excited, because what I'm going to start doing is creating TikToks and start sharing this information in a way that it's easy to understand, in a way that you can take the information and create it in your own type of, like I said, in your own ways, to where you have small groups that meet and talk about it. Like, I want this information to be shared for the betterment of our community, which is what I've always wanted, and why I wanted this information to be able to be synthesized in a way that the general public could understand it. And the real big way this even came into my periphery is because I was in a position where it was during COVID, and I was trying to figure out, like, the direction of the position I was in. And what started happening is these really amazing situations where circumstances were brought to me of the next material that needs to be put into some type of form of training, right? So I was watching, and I think I shared this in my last video, and I want to share it again. And it was the New York Times did an article on addiction and recovery. And what we used to see back then, and this is like, 2000, I started my job, and like literally the day the world closed down, I started a remote job where I had always worked in person, like person to person. I was a supervisor and a house manager and a recovery coach of a whole entire house, and I was doing everything in person, and all of a sudden I was put in a position where I had to work remote, and with nothing to go off of when I started this job. And so since I didn't have any previous information to go off of, I had to actually create what this looked like. And so in doing so, in moving through and having, of course, support from my superiors on where to start and where we already had connections, and then just building those out, what ended up happening is I was watching TV, and that is not true. I was not watching TV. I was reading an article online, and it was through the New York Times. And at this point in time, all we were seeing around substance use was pictures of needles, pictures of drugs, like all these different ways it was shown in this very, very negative connotation. Well, this article, I hate that I couldn't find it, and our leadership couldn't find this article, but it was a thread on Facebook, and it was under, I'm pretty sure it was a New York Times article, and it was written very well. And it was written with the right language. It was written in a way where somebody was informed and really took the time to think about the delivering of these messages in a way where it could be received in a way that it didn't feel like it was imposing or abrasive. And so I said it underneath it. I was like, listen, I took the recovery message training in Chapel Hill, and in 2013, I was like, and I'm reading this, and I was like, this is so amazing that you wrote this in a way where it allows the connotation of this to be received in a manner of speaking where it could be more inviting versus abrasive or harsh, right? So a lot of language written around this is harsh. So once again, a lot of the stuff that I work on with my colleagues, we really work on the messaging as far as it being inviting to the people in which we serve and in which it's being shared with, right? And so I'm like super excited that I see this, because it's not a normity. It's not a normality. Yeah. It's not a normality to see this. And it was the editor of the New York Times. One of the editors was like, I'm so glad you think so. We have notes on the floor, and we're happy that, you see this and that we're doing it. And so pretty much just validating the information I was sharing about the messaging, and then sharing with me, they had notes and they were taking it all into consideration as they were writing. And that person, in probably some way, shape, or form, was connected to substance use disorder and was finding and inviting ways to talk about it, potentially taking a message training. You never know. Because originally it was written by Faces and Voices of Recovery, which I'm so grateful to. What an amazing organization. And what I really want to do with it is show its evolution, right? So originally the message training was created, how do we shift public perception? Our stories have power. And with our stories having power, we then are able to talk about it in the media. We're able to talk about it in front of cameras in a way where we're not going into war stories, but we're actually talking about the whole process of recovery and what is actually happening, which is what I want to highlight as I start working on these TikTok videos, is how we have shifted from a public perception of addiction to actually seeing a recovery culture, right? And so it's really cool. So the messaging actually worked. And what we're seeing now, and I'm loving it, is it's trending to talk about. And all it took is a couple of people saying it. And once a couple of people said it, then people felt safe to continue to talk about it, right? It's just like if you're talking in a specific vernacular. If you can find a way to share the information outside of your vernacular in a way that it could be understood by the general public, do it. right? And I'm seeing it. Like, all these different people are getting outside of the vernacular to share their information. And I love it. It's so freaking cool. And so, yeah. So I'm going to work on the TikToks, and that's going to be the whole thing. It's like, how do we shift from this addiction perspective, which we talked about all the time, to actually talking about what does recovery culture look like? What does harm reduction culture look like? What does being in recovery look like? And that's so cool, because what that looks like is you reaching whatever great, divine, and amazing potential you want to reach. You know, so that's just working on, and by the definition of SAMHSA, it's a very wide open way of describing recovery, which I think is highly important to invite more and more people to it as they're working on their habits and the ways that they want to grow and change and find fulfillment in their lives. It's very basic, right? But the very basic stuff gets to be really, really tough sometimes. And so, I digress. I'm just so excited. You know, like, it makes my heart so happy. It makes my heart so happy to see all these cool things happening. It makes my heart happy that I am able to look at this and get excited about starting these TikTok videos, being able to share this information, how we've seen a evolution happen as professionals within our industry, within the behavioral health industry, as we're starting to talk about how substance use is a mental health disorder, right? And so what that means is it affects your brain, it affects your thinking. So the idea of a rational mindset, this is one of my favorite slides. And I've seen some really cool feedback on it, because this is something as a professional that you see a lot, especially from people unaware with how addiction affects your thinking. And that is this idea of, you have two different mindsets, okay? You got a rational thinker, person thinking very rationally about somebody's addiction. Okay, so they are looking at it and they see it a specific way. So when they look at it, they're saying, why can't this person stop? They got this going on. This is happening. I see this happening with them. This is happening. Why won't they stop? Right? So they see it from that perspective. The person going through it sees it a completely different way. Because in one way, shape, or form, they are seeing their behavior as normal to them. And so since it's normal to them, they can't see it rationally. So it's two different wavelengths. It's not that, this is nothing against you. And that's the thing, the rational person feels like it is against them in some way, shape, or form. That's not the case. It's not against you. This is what they're going through. And their mindset is different because the way the substances affect their thinking affects the way they perceive their level of rationale. So what is normal and rational to this person is not something the other person sees. So once we start recognizing it's two different wavelengths, where do we, and this is what as professionals we talk about, how do you create an intersection point? And it's by the rational mind being able to understand the irrational mind. And that's how we do that, through education, through awareness, through understanding. Now, in sharing this slide, there's been some really cool conversations. And people sitting back like, okay, That makes sense. I never thought of it that way. I did take it personal. I did think it was about me. I did think that they were drinking at me, or that they're doing it because one way, shape, or form it is my fault. And that's the thing. No, it's not your fault. And so I think once we can start like taking the blame and the shame out of it, we then create this really cool connection to have conversations in the middle. And that could be, I see it this way, and it's just because my thinking thinks of it this way. But now I'm understanding that you see it a different way. And I'm sorry that I was misinformed, or I was not aware that is what was happening. Because then what happens is it closes the dissonance and it creates connection. Now, at the same time, right, there's this level of expectation, right? So the rational mind is having this level and expectation of the person who can't think rationally. So therefore, it's like you have to be able to understand the irrationality side of things to decide how you would like to respond. And what that looks like is you obviously taking care of yourself as well. And that's a huge part of this too, is to make sure that the person that is in the rational thinking is able to take care of themselves, get themselves support that they need, be able to check in and make sure your needs are being met too. And I think in doing that, that also helps the person with the irrational thinking, And so little things like this can make all the difference in the world. Just having these very simple conversations can allow a person with a rational mindset to lose the resentment, to lose the feeling like everything is my fault and this is why this is happening. Because really why it's happening is because of the way these different things are affecting the person's thinking and functionality. And I think knowing that can make one hell of a difference. And I've seen it do so. And like I said, this information can be annoying and frustrating, and maybe you want to hold the resentment unconsciously, or it's easier that way, or, to stay upset and everything. But at the same time, may this allow some peace to come in place of that. It's important. It's important to allow the space to see how two different mentalities. Where can you find that intersection point? And it could also look like sitting down and asking the person with a more irrational mindset to you, because remember, to them it's rational. So just sitting down and asking them, how are you seeing this? And maybe learn what their side of it looks like. And I think that can help too. And if they're not in a place to want to talk about it, you gotta respect that too. But to just make sure to leave that door open for those conversations, I think is very important. And I'm always here. I'm always here to talk about it. I'm always here to, as a professional, I got over 9,000 hours in the my alcohol and drug certification. I got amazing supervision I've had in my life. I've worked with wonderful colleagues, you know, and these are the things that we help and support people with, and I have, you know, any biopsychosocial, going over family stuff with many people, and the things that I'll share in this TikTok, you know, these TikTok videos for the general public will be about those things that me and my colleagues have worked with other people, you know, as professionals in our field who we've worked with, and what we've seen, and how we've seen families over time be more supportive with awareness. How, you know, I remember when I was working in sober living, that was the coolest thing, like being on the phone with residents and their parents and watching these connections start to take place where there was maybe some disconnection there. It's a really amazing thing. And so bridging those gaps and finding ways to lessen the dissonance around this is baller status, dude. I'm always feel that way. But I want to do one of these cards. Maybe pull one more. Okay. These are cool. I found these online, and I'm just going to share this. Visualization. Sit comfortably in a quiet space and close your eyes. Visualize a scene or image that invokes a sense of calm or empowerment. Focus on the details of this image, colors, shapes, and how it makes you feel. Breathe deeply, integrating these feelings of calmness or strength into your body. Use this technique as a tool for relaxation or motivation, depending on the imagery chosen. Cool! Visualization's so cool. It was so wild. It's so crazy, like how I got that vision of people in town hall meetings and like just talking about this more. I had a vision of it. And now we got the monks doing the walk for peace. They're so amazing. And I didn't realize it, but Aloka wasn't even their dog. That dog just showed up to walk with them. Talk about fucking sober trippy, dude. Sober trippy. I think that is the coolest thing ever. And if you've seen it, I don't know if you're following it, but when he gets into the pace car, when the dog gets into the pace car, he just sits there and cries because he wants to be out there walking, dude. That's so amazing. That's so amazing. I got this deck, the Flower of Life deck, at the coolest metaphysical store. I can't even remember the name of it. In Tennessee, in Nashville, when I was there for work. All right. Balance. Right? So creating balance. For you to fulfill your potential, to become all that you can be in the moment, you must be in balance. So I'm going to interject there. Life is all about finding balance. And it's going to always be about finding balance. And we're going to be off balance. And we're going to be over balanced. It's kind of like with our yin and yang energy, right? It's like when it's coalescing, it's working at the same time. Like for instance, and I used to share this on my tape reel stuff, and I once again I was practicing, and I got off of tape reel. But one of the things I always like to talk about was this idea of you're going to have like your rigid thinking, right? So, or not even rigid thinking. You're going to have your thinking where you have a set agenda, right? So for instance, like for me, I was doing Tai Chi every day. Okay. It was amazing. Every time I do it, I've shared this before. I've done Tai Chi like every day for a very long time. I feel it every time I do Tai Chi. I did it in a previous life. I taught with Dr. Mikao Usui a long time ago. And at that point, it was a lot of self-taught stuff. I taught next to him. I also know a few people that I know in this life were with me in that life, right? And so with that being said, anytime I do Tai Chi, I love it. I know it. I barely have done it in this life, but I know it. Like, it's that feeling. It's a resonance that is so cool. Anyway, so I was doing Tai Chi every day, and then I just stopped. And I need to get back into doing it. But I had this plan, a set plan to do Tai Chi every day. Well, and then the other side of my energy was like, I don't want to do Tai Chi today. Even though I like it, I want to work on something else. And so it's like I found balance in not doing the Tai Chi and doing something else with my time, like reading a book. But it's like it creates a flow, right? Now, when we are too much, if I were too much in my my Tai Chi mindset of not doing it, I'd be beating myself up for not doing it every day, right? But because I'm okay with shifting, balance is created, and I know I can go back to the Tai Chi. Now, the other side of it is I never do Tai Chi again. I start doing it, I never do it again. I'm so willy-nilly, I just don't do it again. And I don't want that either. And that's off balance. So once again, I create a new thing I'm doing. Maybe do Tai Chi every 2 days, every 3 days. You get the gist though? So what I'm saying is both work together. It creates a coalesce and it creates flow, just like us. So balance comes into focus in different ways. But when we see that it's like when you're rowing a boat, when you get that good flow going, right? It's the same thing. We are the same way. So when we get that good flow going, we're going. God, I feel that so strongly. Wow. All right, so you see what I'm saying? So it can be off balance one way or the other. I just, need this and, need that Tai Chi and I'm not doing it. I'm so mad at myself. Or, you know what? I didn't do Tai Chi, but I'm going to do this instead. Or I'm going to incorporate this. But then I can go back to the Tai Chi, right? And like I said, and then it's like so willy-nilly, I'm not even doing Tai Chi anymore. And that's off balance too. Unless I take another hobby or interest or something to take its place, right? But what I'm just saying is like finding your own flow, finding what works for you. And it's really cool because that's what we do in life. Like this is something that is consistently happening for us. So for you to fulfill your potential, to become all that you can be in every moment, you must be in balance. So finding that flow. How are you finding your flow? And when you are not in balance, you start thinking about how to come back into flow. It's kind of like, I don't like the word toxic because really what it is misalignment. So if we create space to call it a misalignment, then people are automatically thinking, how do I bring it back into alignment? If I am misaligned in some way, shape, or form, then I can come back into alignment. If somebody hears, oh my God, I'm toxic, it shuts you down. right? And so you got to think about how this information is coming through and how can you bring things back into alignment, right? So once again, like finding that balance. So finding the balance. Otherwise, you're resisting life and creating tension. Just talking about that. This resistance and tension are needed to a certain extent for anything to expand, grow, and become more. Learn to recognize the resistance rather than letting it run you. Anything you don't like, sense it, feel into it, and the next logical action step will present itself. This step will move you in the direction of your potential, your dreams and desires. Take a deep, gentle breath and thank whatever has moved you out of balance. Say to yourself, thank you. Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for showing me what I really don't want and reminding me to come back to my balanced place where I will be inspired to create what I do want. I am willing to experience all things, for in doing so, I become clear with my highest loving path. Namaste. The light in me absolutely sees the light in you. All right, y'all. Thank you. Deuces.